Hi guys, welcome to a STEAM chat with me, Katelyn Patterson. I'm super excited to get to share with you a little bit about the world of STEAM and why I'm so passionate about it here at MUSE School CA. So first I just kind of wanted to start with a little history of how I got plugged in with STEAM education. I started teaching in 2010 and very quickly realized that my teaching styles lended more toward the progressive and things that were not as popular in mainstream traditional schools. And my principal actually was an amazing fellow who did some research because my school was a Montessori school. And he kind of was really pushing us to go the STEAM route. And so STEAM education was something that fit very perfectly with my teaching abilities and my teaching styles. I'm a third generation teacher. I have many teachers in my family. Shout out to all the wonderful men and women in my life who've encouraged me to do that. And so I've been around the teaching education world for a while, and my principal turned me on to STEAM. And it was something that our school was really hungry for at the time. We'd come from Montessori based, and STEAM, is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so, something that we were able to jump on board with really quickly. So I've had many years of experience with STEAM education. So today I'm going to share with you how we can design STEAM units of learning, how we can access our STEAM units to hit students' passions, and why it's really important to include the arts in STEAM and not just hit the STEM criteria that's so popular today. And hi, Mom. Love you. So now you know why I'm so tied into STEAM and why it's one of my passions. And so I know a lot of people are really hip right now on the STEM fields, which are very important. And it's super important to get girls into coding and engineering and sciences and things like that. But by including the arts, the written arts, the performing arts, the visual arts, we really are able just to tap that much more deeper into our students' passions, the things that they're interested in, and it allows us to create more of a welcoming learning environment for all of the children in our classroom. And so that's why it's really important to add the arts, not just STEM. STEM's a great start if you're looking for a gateway, but really if we can add the arts, it really includes a lot more of our learners, a lot more female learners, a lot more non-traditional learners into a welcoming learning environment. So I wanted to share two of my favorite STEAM lessons that I've done, one from a previous school and one from a school here in California. Back at my first STEAM school in Alabama, University Place, shout out to all my girls and friends back there, we did a project called Boomtown. Our students were reading a story, which they had a really hard time connecting to the background, the content of a boomtown out west where, towns pop up overnight and they need, goods and services to survive as a town. So my colleagues and I came up with the idea to actually build a boomtown and run a boomtown, have the children build businesses. What would your storefront look like? If you had bills, how would you pay your bills as a cashier at the general store or as, a farmer, a rancher, a gold miner, etc. So our students for a course of a semester created this town, named the town. We had a sheriff, we had a mayor. They ran a business or sold a good or provided a service. They did all of the billing, which was a great math tie-in. And we just really lived in this boomtown world. We spoke to each other in Old Western terms. The kids were really excited about it. And, we just kind of lived in this boomtown-ness. And we're able to cover so many milestones and engage so many learners because it was real. We took this really, foreign concept to them and made it real in the present that they were able to live and experience in, which is really fun to them. We were able to do this in a public school setting with no extra funding. So it's totally possible. I know a lot of people are kind of turned off to the STEM or the STEAM world because they believe a large concept of money comes along with it. But you can do it completely sustainably and recycled, repurposed. So it's totally possible. Be encouraged, all you public school teachers out there. You can totally live a STEAMy life. I also wanted to share one of my favorite units from here at MUSE School CA, one of my STEAM units. And I have a lot of freedom here in a private school where I didn't have back in a public school. I'm a STEAM coordinator here, so I get to design amazing STEAM days for learners. I get to design amazing curriculum for our learners here that are related around science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. One of my favorite units that I did was through a company called Real World Scholars, where my students and I were able to open and run a business. Kind of ties back into the boomtown at University Place, but so my students and I were given $1,000 from this company, Real World Scholars. We love you very much and appreciate your dedication to education. And so basically giving, 8-year-olds $1,000, they feel like they're millionaires. So they immediately wanted to go buy a car. They wanted to get a storefront in Santa Monica. They really had no idea or no concept around what $1,000 was and what it could buy. So we spent some time doing some research. We were given this money to open a business, to encourage entrepreneurship. And so my kids wanted to use their passions to be able to explore entrepreneurship. My kids were gorgeous artists. They love to paint, they love to sketch, they love to draw. So immediately as a teacher, I'm thinking, how can I tie STEAM into their passions, into entrepreneurship? Sounds like a great tie-in. So my students decided that we would sell and manufacture postcards and cards. So as normal 8-year-olds go, they just wanted to hand paint all these cards on random papers that they found for $50. So in the essence of failing forward and steamy things, I let them try that. We painted, we glued, we pasted, we spent a little bit on supplies, and then we tried to sell cards for $50. As they learned, it's very hard to sell a card for $50. So we decided to go back and do a little bit of market research. Our students, we actually went on field trips. We spoke with representatives from Hallmark. We connected through Slack, which is a great website that it connects you to real people working in industry. We connected with the real card designers. We found out how much a card really costs in the process of creating and designing and getting some feedback on your work. So my students, about a month in, we knew that cards would sell for $4 to $5. We knew how to copy them. We were really interested in the technology side. We focused a lot on the arts and the maths, and so we were focusing more on the technology side. They wanted to get a printer. And I was like, great, we need a printer. We're making and selling postcards. How much does a printer cost? We only have $1,000 and we've spent a little bit, so we don't have that much left, right? In the vein of self-efficacy and their passions, if they want to buy a printer that spends all of their money and then we're out of money, I'm just going to let it go there and as a teacher facilitate. Luckily, we had some businessmen and women in my class, and they convinced my kids to buy a less expensive printer for our art so that we could copy and manufacture. So we kind of covered the math through the budgeting, the art through the actual painting and the physical arts, and then the technology through the printing and copying. A lot of science came in when we were learning to code. It's actually really difficult for an 8-year-old to learn how to do a website initially. We're very persistent, open, and resourceful. So I would say within about 6 weeks of learning to code and build and photograph, a lot of scientific arts pulled together, and we had our first website. So we launched Polar Posts. That was the name of our company. About 8 weeks after initial inception and failures and launches and hardships and persistence, we made it work. My students were super excited. We sold these postcards through our STEAM projects. We marketed them here at school. My students' self-efficacy flourished as we hosted pop-up shops here on campus, at dismissal, and at local farmers markets. They were really able to see their vision and their passions come to life through the avenue of STEAM. And I think that's, again, goes back to the point of why arts is so important to have in the classroom. And again, with thematic learning, that STEAM is great, but it really just doesn't catch all of the needs and desires of the learners in your classroom. So adding the A and adding the arts, STEAM just really involves and includes everyone in your classroom. So those are two of my favorite success stories around STEAM in the classroom as a classroom teacher, both in public and private, with funding and without funding, because that can always be a little bit tricky. Does anyone have any questions? Since this is a live event, I would love to keep you guys engaged and talking about the things that you would like me to, or I could just keep rambling for a little while longer if you guys don't have any questions. Okay, one thing that's always a really big question when I talk to teachers in the US is, where do you start? Where do you start? My kids have an idea. They love Minecraft. Great, how can we tie that into a classroom activity? I always have a little physical piece of paper where I jot down all my notes. Teachers, you know you're super creative. Give yourself some credit. Let's say if we start with a diagram of Minecraft, great. How could we include sciences? Well, Minecraft is a farming community. We're growing vegetables. We're talking about the seasons. We're talking about how things are happening in agriculture. That's a lot of sciences, right? Technology. Well, Minecraft is a video game that we play online. It's a technological service, right? What about engineering? Oh my gosh, the whole Minecraft is an engineering community. You're building with cubes, you're building with 3D shapes. It'd be so fun to try to build those in real life, talking about geometry. That'd be a great geometry tie-in. Arts, in Minecraft, you're building your own characters, designing your own characters. Again, the tie-in back to math and the shapes. And there's a STEAM unit just like that could run for 1 week, could run for 6 weeks, it could run for a semester. One thing we always do at MUSE that's so very special to me is looking at what our students are interested in and their passions, and then tying their passion projects and their STEAM projects around what they're interested in. So right now, each of my students is running a STEAM-based passion project, and our topics are very fun. The students get to choose one a semester. So right now in my class, I have 16 learners. We are studying sharks, cheetahs, Greek mythology, acting, submersibles, electricity, magic. As you can imagine, 8-year-olds running around studying their passion through the vein of STEAM is amazing. We're paper macheing sharks. We're doing experiments to see how fast cheetahs can run. Just in case you're wondering, 8-year-olds run very fast, but not as fast as cheetahs. We're learning magic tricks. We're conducting experiments with electricity. Giving students the vein of STEAM to explore their passions has been a tremendous gift to my classroom, and I feel like to our schools, giving our students the ability to take their passions and run with it and give them that little bit of guidance. So giving them, we're studying cheetahs, that's wonderful. How do we study the science of cheetahs? What's the art of a cheetah? Giving them these ideas, these thought-provoking things allows them to facilitate their own learning, which is incredible to see. So I have a question from Elizabeth. How do students self-assess their progress toward learning goals across the different disciplines? That's a very important question. We use a lot of rubric assessments, self-assessments, and partner assessments. So let's say that 2 students are studying animals, one studying cheetahs, one studying sharks. They may have a lot of crossover in their STEAM ideas, whether it's the science of a food chain or a habitat or engineering, some sort of diorama, that they'll self-assess, check in with a friend using their PCM's communication skills, and then reassess. At the end of the semester, the students always sit down with me and we collaborate to write what we call a blueprint, which is a very formative assessment of their learning. And the students will share, I really felt like I learned or I mastered food chains when I made the food chain of a shark, where I feel like I'm still emerging in habitats. I don't really understand the different biomes and habitats of the world. So it's a lot of rubric assessment with a peer and with self, and then a lot of conversations with teachers. Because we have such small classrooms here at MUSE at 16 to 18 learners, I have time to walk around and take a lot of informal notes or jot down their learning or have conversations with them because of our such small class sizes. So there is a lot of informal teacher observation, the rubrics. We don't do any formal assessment here at MUSE, and especially around their STEAM passion projects. We really want them to have the opportunity to fail forward, which a lot of students, if they feel like they're working for a grade or working for some sort of, that end punctuation mark, they're not going to give their best effort and continue to feel like they can fail forward. So the rubric assessments have been super helpful, and allowing students to help create those is amazing because then they're familiar with the process and able to self-assess pretty quickly. Thanks for your question, Elizabeth. I have one more thing I wanted to talk about with you, and please feel free to shoot me any more questions that you may have. So funding, that was one thing that I wanted to talk about with you guys too. So our school has a sustainable STEAM lab where students are able to collect resources and bring them in, and we're able to reuse them for projects. So one of the things that the students do is they bring in recyclables, so toilet paper rolls, boxes, glasses, things like that, any metals that they may have, and then they are able to use them for their passion projects. So one of my students was able to bring in totally free, it's all recyclables, saving the world, right? they're able to bring in a lot of recyclables to create their dioramas, their cheetah bodies, their paper maches. We're able to recycle all of these things and bring from home, which really gives the students a nice tie-in to saving the planet, as that's one of our pillars at our school, as well as being resourceful and open to trying new things with their passion-based learning. So funding doesn't have to be a thing. If we can be resourceful and sustainable and reusing and recycling things, that can be very helpful in bringing these STEAM projects to life. I also say reach out to your friends and family. They're your biggest supporters. They want to support and be connected to anything that you're doing. So hitting them up for, you know, a book for this or a resource for that, that might also be an option for you to help fund some of your student projects. So I only have a couple more minutes with you guys. If you have any questions, I'd love to answer them. If not, I really encourage you to go online, research STEAM. If you're not familiar at all, maybe start with STEM, and then I really encourage you to increase your STEAM awareness. And thematic-based passion learning, it just really increases student engagement, allowing them to be involved in their learning, their self-efficacy grows, failing forward, having sustainable projects just really allows them to go above and beyond and be active participants in their learning. So I think I'm out of time, but I appreciate you guys joining in, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions or concerns or want some more logistics or teacher nitty-gritty. I'm happy to share with you. But happy Wednesday and happy WebNIS Day to everybody, and thanks for joining.